tell you what, those people from California are coming in hot here to the great state of Texas. I mean, I could give my own personal reasons why I don't want to live in California, and hearing from all the people that have been reaching out wanting to make the move here, they are more than ready to do so. There are a number of things that are different, of course, between the state of California and the state of Texas. Of course, definitely more than just that amazing beach weather that they have over there on the West Coast. But in this video, I do want to discuss the 10 main reasons why so many Californians are making that move here to Texas. Yes, everybody has their main reasons that they are moving here, and some just actually go out and do it on a whim. I have helped a number of people make the move here from California, which has actually ended up sparking a lot of interesting conversations for sure. So what would be your reasons for moving here to Texas? Maybe you're not quite ready, or maybe you just can't get here fast enough. And of course, if that's the case, you should hurry up and reach out. Give me a call and let me see what we can do to get the ball rolling as soon as possible. But for now, let's dive into why all of those Californians are making their move here to the state of Texas. And the number one reason why a lot of Californians are moving here is because of the difference in the cost of living. Obviously, it's a huge one for a lot of people. In California, the cost of living has continued to be driven up by their high housing costs, their ridiculously steep taxes, not to mention their everyday expenses like utilities and transportation. I tell you what, every single time we have visited that glorious Golden State, you just can't look at the cost of gas while you are driving up and down and all around throughout the state. Because when you compare that to what we pay for gas here in Texas, the prices are so much higher. It just kind of makes you wonder how they even stomach making those long commutes on a regular basis out there. And that's just one of the examples of one of the unfortunate high costs that they have over there in California. In some of the major cities in California, like Los Angeles and San Francisco, for example, they have some of the highest living costs in the entire country. In contrast, though, Texas offers significantly lower costs across the board, and people often find that they can live a lot more comfortably here with the same salary or even maybe a slightly lower one when they move to the state of Texas. Now, for example, I actually had a client that was moving here from the San Francisco area, and they were telling us that they were saving around 40% on their overall cost of living. What they were paying for a small apartment in the Bay Area allowed them to purchase a brand new 3,000 square foot home here in Dallas with an actual backyard that they told us they could not wait to put in their very own pool. So obviously a huge difference if you don't have access to that where you're coming from, and to be able to have your own backyard to throw your kids out there, put your own pool in and relax on a weekend. Huge draw for people being able to save a significant amount of money. So for those people who are considering making a move to Texas, especially here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can expect to have more financial freedom, which of course is going to help you be able to allow for a better quality of life. For some people moving here, they're finally able to actually own a property, start to save more money, and maybe even have some more flexibility to be able to spend in other areas of their life, which is of course a key driver for many people relocating. Now, just in the past few months, I have had a handful of people call and discuss what their options might be when making a move here, when they do realize how affordable some of these areas are here to actually be able to buy a home, and we sit down and run some of the numbers to figure out what they can afford. It makes the idea of moving here all the more desirable for a lot of people. Now, I do find it funny how relocation from other areas do end up coming in waves. I have had reach outs from all over the country and even a few from other parts of the world. But here in Texas, I've actually had a few times where all of a sudden 4 to 5 people in a row start to reach out from certain areas. I had 3 or 4 all of a sudden come through within a matter of a week from Arizona, and a handful, I think I can't even count how many there were, from various parts of the state of California, and even from the Chicago area and New York. So they do kind of seem to bundle themselves together, I've noticed. Now, moving on, the number 2 reason for a lot of Californians wanting to make the move here to Texas is, of course, going to be the housing market and affordability. Now, the housing affordability is one of the biggest factors driving people from California to Texas. In California, the median home prices are crazy high, especially in some of the areas due to the limited housing supply. They do have much stricter zoning laws and are very slow and limited on their new construction options. Areas like San Francisco have home prices starting well over $1 million, making home ownership a dream that is really out of reach for a lot of individuals and families. In contrast, here in Texas, it offers much more affordable options, particularly in a lot of the suburbs all around the Dallas metro area. So many of the areas like maybe McKinney and Rockwall or Forney and even down into Mansfield, just to name a few, of course, where some of these homes are a lot more spacious and are much more reasonably priced, and you get a lot more bang for your buck out here in Texas compared to California. Now, not to be a little controversial or anything here on this channel, but California's rent control policies and zoning laws have created a pretty big housing crisis in many of the cities and areas all throughout the state. For example, San Francisco's restrictive building laws have led to overcrowded housing and some crazy inflated prices, which have pushed a lot of the people to up and actually end up having to leave the area. Now, this year, I did help a family relocating from the LA area to Dallas, and they were able to upgrade from I think it was a 1,500 square foot home to a 3,500 square foot home with what they call some land in the Prosper area. Ultimately, they did end up paying less in their monthly mortgage payment and also on their property taxes here. So with the promise of being able to buy affordable, high quality housing with some more space and much better amenities is really a significant pull for families, even considering the possibility of a move here to Texas. Dallas-Fort Worth offers some of the best values in real estate, making home ownership much more attainable for a lot of people. Now, the third reason why so many people are moving here from California is, of course, our great job market and a lot of the major industries that have either relocated here or do have a fairly large presence here in the Dallas metro area. Now, in talking with people who are planning on moving here, I have been pretty surprised at how many companies are still bringing their company headquarters here to the state of Texas because of our great tax benefits that they get by doing so. Now, of course, California may have Silicon Valley and Hollywood. Oh yeah, and of course they do have Disneyland, but Texas is rapidly catching up with a booming job market. We have had major tech companies like Tesla, Oracle, and HP that have relocated or expanded their operations here to the state of Texas due to the state's business-friendly policies that we have here. Texas's lack of corporate income tax, the lower operating costs that they have here, and large talent pool of everybody relocating and living here in the state of Texas do make it an attractive option for a lot of businesses. So with a lot of companies and employees fleeing the state of California due to the high taxes and their regulatory burdens that the state imposes on them and their high cost of living, here in Texas, in contrast, those companies do have minimal regulation and zero state income tax, which does create an environment where the businesses and the employees are able to thrive so much better. So a couple of months ago, I helped a client from up near the Bay Area. Yes, again, it does come in waves. I either get them from kind of all up around the northern part of California or more towards the southern part of California. Now, this client was an engineer who was relocating here because his company was moving here to the Dallas area. Now, this particular client was able to keep their same job, and his benefits were more in the fact that he actually got to keep the same salary that he was being paid there as well. So with a significantly lower cost of living here in Texas, it ended up just being a huge bonus for him. In fact, this client ended up keeping their home in California as a rental, was able to get a bigger home here in Texas for a lot cheaper, which ended up helping to afford them the ability to now have two different homes that they owned. One of them being an investment property now, and hopefully that one will obviously continue to appreciate as people are continuing to help pay down his mortgage. So another benefit from moving from California to the state of Texas. Now, for the professionals that might be looking for job stability and higher disposable income, Texas does offer a number of growing industries here in so many different areas, including tech, healthcare, and of course, the energy sector. Dallas-Fort Worth is really at the heart of a lot of this growth, offering jobs across so many different sectors without having to be burdened with those high taxes and living expenses that do burden the people living and working in California. All right, now on to number 4. The fourth reason why so many Californians might find Texas so much more attractive is our weather and the differences in our climates. Now, for some people, weather does play a role in their lifestyle decisions. I actually do get that quite often. In fact, working with a client right now who's moving from up north because they are just tired of the cold. Now, while California does have some fairly mild temperatures, especially down and along the coast, the state is prone to a number of different natural disasters. So not only are they prone to facing wildfires, but they also experience earthquakes and even droughts, especially in the summertime when there's just no relief with any rain in sight. Now, the 2020 wildfire season alone led to tens of thousands of Californians being displaced from their houses. Texas, although we do get pretty hot and humid here in the summer, especially July and August, nobody wants to be here. It generally doesn't face the same kinds of large-scale natural disasters that you can find in California. We do have occasional hurricanes along the Gulf Coast and some very sporadic, tiny little tornadoes, I guess we'll call it, in the northern parts of the state here, even in the Dallas area. So personally, that's also why I am glad that we do live here in Dallas compared to going down into the Houston area where you do kind of see some more hurricane type rains down there. But that's just me. So while Californians do often deal with weeks of smoke-filled air during wildfire season, including this summer again, plus their poor air quality that they always have, man, I tell you what, when we have visited there in the summertime, that smog layer as you're like driving down through the city is so thick and is definitely not that attractive for sure. And they also, and in California, they are also prone to power outages because of their weak power grid, even though they do think that the whole state should have to drive electric cars. Not sure how that's going to pan out in the long run. But in contrast, here in Texas, particularly in the Dallas area, we are provided with stable and much more reliable living conditions. We are free from that seasonal threat of wildfires and our air pollution. Yes, we obviously do have some, but nothing like you're going to find in areas of California. Now, before I did get back into real estate here, we knew a family from Northern California that relocated here to Dallas after losing their home in one of those wildfires. They did choose the Dallas area not only because of its affordability, but also because of its weather stability and the safer environmental conditions. They did feel it was easier to rebuild their lives here, being close to family, and instead of having to actually do that in California and run the risk of it possibly happening to them again. So while many of the Californians are seeking a much safer and predictable climate here in Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth does offer the best of both worlds. We do have mild winters and affordable living without the constant worry of some of these natural disasters disrupting our lives. I would rather take a hailstorm here over what Californians have to deal with every single year. Now, the fifth reason for so many Californians wanting to move here to Texas is because of our taxes. Nobody likes talking about taxes and nobody likes paying them. Well, here in Texas, you do not have to pay state income tax. So if you're still working and getting an income, you are not having to pay taxes on that. We also have lower property taxes when you compare it to the value of our homes. Yes, we do have fairly high property taxes. I talk about it all the time, but when you are talking about the high value of homes in California compared to what you can get here in Texas, technically, personally, they end up coming out lower for our property taxes here. But of course, that is some of the time, not all of the time. Now, taxes are always a major sticking point for a lot of Californians. The state has one of the highest state income taxes, which can reach 13.3% for high income earners. And this combined with the high property taxes in areas like Los Angeles, for example, it does leave residents with less disposable income. Texas, on the other hand, has no state income tax, like I said, making it much more attractive for people and businesses and everyone wanting to make the move here. So while many high earners and businesses have fled California due to the state's heavy taxation, companies like Tesla and Oracle and many individuals have publicly voiced frustration with California's tax policies, leading to mass relocations here to Texas. Now, I have worked with a client who relocated here from the San Jose area to Dallas. They said they saved over $20,000 per year just in state income taxes alone. And these savings allowed them to afford a much larger home and be able to invest more in their businesses. Now, because of Texas's tax policies, particularly here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it does give some residents and businesses a lot more financial freedom. So for anyone that is still completely frustrated with California's high taxes, Texas does provide a much more welcoming environment for wealth accumulation and potential growth. Just by saving money on your taxes alone puts a significant amount of money back in your pocket. Okay, now on to number 6. The 6th reason for Californians moving here to Texas is going to be for the lifestyle and our outdoor recreation. So while California does offer some stunning landscapes, including, of course, all of the beautiful beaches and the mountains, and also some national parks. However, these outdoor amenities do end up coming with a high price. Some of the beaches that we do love going to ourselves are often pretty crowded, and the high living costs can limit some of the residents' ability to be able to enjoy the beach and the mountains on a regular basis. I mean, think about it when you do go on vacation. We go to the beach for like a week in the summertime and we spend every single day at the beach. And there's so many people, I mean, maybe you're in real estate and you don't really have that luxury to be able to just pack up everything and spend a day at the beach oftentimes, because it is a lot of work just to be able to get down there and pack up the kids, and not to mention find the parking and find a spot on the beach, especially if you maybe only have an hour or two that you might be able to enjoy it. So here in Texas, though, on the other hand, it offers plenty of its own outdoor attractions. Here we have tons of lakes, lots of hiking trails, and plenty of wide open spaces without honestly having that same high cost of living. Dallas-Fort Worth also has a wide variety of parks and other recreational areas that do provide a much more affordable and enjoyable lifestyle. Now, one of my previous clients, who has become a pretty close friend, moved here from Southern California and mentioned recently that while they loved living near the beach, because of course, who wouldn't, they rarely had time to visit due to their long work hours and the high cost of living that they had out there. They were constantly on the go with work and kids and didn't have tons of time to just go and enjoy the beach like we do, like I said, when you go on vacation and you have all the time in the world, it seems. But after moving here to Dallas, they found that they do have so much more free time and a lot more financial flexibility to be able to enjoy outdoor activities. They were able to buy a boat here, and they love going out on Lake Grapevine because it's so close to their house and it's an easy time to just get out on the lake and enjoy some time away more often than they were able to enjoy the beach when they lived in California. So for those who might be seeking a more balanced lifestyle with access to outdoor activities without that hefty price tag of California living, well, Dallas-Fort Worth does offer so many opportunities for recreation and relaxation at a fraction of the cost. No, you don't have to buy a boat to do so, but it sure is nice if you can. Now on to number 7 for why so many Californians are wanting to move here to the state of Texas. Is going to be our traffic, the commute, and even surprisingly, the public transportation. California's traffic, particularly in cities like Los Angeles, for example, because I've done this many times, is notorious for being some of the worst traffic. The commutes can easily stretch to an hour or more, sometimes 2, I've heard, even for relatively short distances. California's public transportation system is also pretty inadequate in a lot of these areas as well. It does force so many people to still have to rely on having to use their cars. Texas, while of course we are still pretty car heavy, car friendly, and I would still probably recommend that you need a car when moving here to the Dallas area, there are generally going to be shorter commutes and more accessible public transportation options, especially in and around the main Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We do have what's called the DART system here, which is the Dallas Area Rapid Transit System, and that is actually also a growing alternative. There have been many times we have been in California over the years, and what you'd hope might only be maybe a 45-minute drive because you're driving maybe from the the San Diego area to Newport Beach ends up being significantly longer, and sometimes even multiple hours to get there instead of maybe that short little 45 minutes. The traffic alone is enough for me to not want to move there permanently to the state of California. Now, I have talked to many Californians that are fed up with their long commutes and the poorly maintained roads that they have there, which of course are often a consequence of the state's high population density and their budget issues. In Texas, particularly here in Dallas, I will say that our infrastructure hasn't been able to keep up quite as much with the growth that we've been having here, because it does seem that no matter where you go, there is always construction going on. But eventually, as these roads get done and it starts to expand and grow, it's certainly going to be much better than if you lived in a lot of these areas in California. So of course, with all of that construction going on and everybody always taking care of our roads, it's definitely going to mean that our roads are much better kept than those in California are. Now, speaking of another client who moved here from outside of the Los Angeles area here to Dallas, they were able to cut their daily commute from over 90 minutes to just around about 30 minutes. And that was on a bad day, they said, for them. I made sure that when we talked about their relocation to give them all the ins and outs of the commutes and how long that might be so that they would be able to have more time with their family, be able to have time to go to their kids' soccer games and football games, which has significantly reduced the stress that they used to be under by spending so much time in their car on their daily commutes. Now, having a shorter commute for my husband was also a big deal for us when we moved here to the Dallas area. Now, if you really want the option to be able to use our public transportation if you need to, there are areas that you can focus on when making that move here, because with our growing public transit system, Dallas-Fort Worth is certainly a more convenient place to live, especially for those who are tired of dealing with that California grind that they have out there. Now we're on to number 8. And the 8th reason for so many Californians moving here to Texas is going to be our quality of education. Not only our public schools, but also the universities that we have here as well. Of course, both Texas and California do have top-tier universities. But when we are speaking more at the K-12 public school systems here, that is definitely going to be a much different story. California's public schools are highly varied and do have many underfunded schools in the larger and more urban areas. Here in Texas, particularly around the Dallas suburbs, the public schools tend to be very highly rated, in fact, for the entire country. Many do have significant investments in what they call the STEM programs, and of course, all of the extracurricular activities that are provided to the students in grades K through 12. And no, it is not just sports, it's not just football, because of course, football is king here in Texas. Some of our schools have multi-million-dollar sports complexes, as well as other opportunities for kids to be involved in a huge range of opportunities through the school system. Now, for example, we did help a family moving from the Bay Area, again, another one from up north, and they wanted to move to Prosper mainly because of the schools. In fact, they had done all of their research and they wanted to make sure that they found a home within the Prosper ISD. They found that the public schools in Prosper were so much better funded and more focused on technology and the extracurricular programs that they offered compared to their previous district in California. In fact, they said it just did not even compare. And of course, as always, they could not believe the football stadium that they had out there. So if you haven't been to Texas and seen what our football stadiums look like, you are probably in for a big shock. Nobody quite understands. So for families that are relocating here to Dallas-Fort Worth, you will be able to find a really strong public school system, particularly in most of the suburbs. They do offer children a very high quality education with less competition and overcrowding than what we hear is available in the state of California. All right, now for number 9. And the 9th reason for people moving from California to Texas is, of course, our political climate and our cultural differences. This is always going to be a sticky one, and it's going to bring up a lot of heated discussion. Now, one of the most polarizing aspects of California versus Texas debate that we have out here is our political climate. California is known for its more progressive policies, with policies that focus on social issues, environmental regulations, and high taxation to support the government services. Texas, on the other hand, is a more conservative state. There is an emphasis on personal freedom, lower taxes, some gun rights, and less government intervention. Now, these differences do often drive people to make a decision based on their political alignment and their personal values. Many Californians who do prefer less government regulation and the lower taxes and a focus on some personal freedom might find that here in Texas and being a part of our more conservative political climate might be a little bit more appealing. Now, this is especially true for some business owners and for families seeking more traditional values and for those who do value their Second Amendment rights. Now, of course, this is a little bit controversial. California's progressive policies, such as the sanctuary city laws, their strict gun control, and their environmental regulations can be a major factor to those leaving the state. For example, law enforcement in many parts of California may not pursue certain property crimes or drug offenses, leaving some of the residents feeling kind of unsafe, particularly in cities like San Francisco, where crime and homelessness really have become quite rampant. Now, a lot of these things, yes, there is research online, but this is also coming from people that I do talk to on a regular basis who are making the move here and how they feel that things are going down. So, of course, do your research. The state of Texas, yes, while it does lean a little bit more conservative, we are getting to the point of being a little bit more balanced. So we do welcome everybody. Just want you to know the differences between the two states because I know it's going to bring it up. Now, of course, working in real estate and helping so many families relocate here to Dallas, I've helped several clients move here from areas around San Francisco and LA. Most have cited being frustrated with California's lenient crime policies, their desire for a community where laws are more strictly enforced. They were drawn to Texas's strong law enforcement, more conservative approach to crime, and the greater focus on our public safety. So that is definitely going to be dependent on where in California that you might be moving from. The crime in California is obviously not awful in every little section of it, but just saying overall, the majority of it, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So for the people that do value strong law enforcement, the personal responsibility, and a government that focuses on economic freedom, they might find that Texas, and particularly here in Dallas-Fort Worth, to be a much more in alignment with their views. Now, the cultural and political climate in Texas does align with those who want to live in a place where taxes are lower, laws are more strictly enforced, and the conservative values are a little bit more prevalent. Now, last but not least, on to number 10. And this last reason that we have found for people moving from California to Texas is going to be our overall quality of life, from our safety, our lower crime rates, and the excellent healthcare that we have here. Now, in recent years, California has seen a pretty significant uptick in their crime rates, especially with property crimes, more drug-related offenses, and increase in homelessness. This is found more in some major cities like San Francisco and LA, for example, but it's increased more in other areas as well. Many of the cities are struggling with how to handle these issues, with some implementing more lenient policies on the nonviolent crimes, which has, of course, sparked some debate and frustration among a lot of the residents. Now, Texas, on the other hand, does have a reputation for taking a much firmer stance on law enforcement, and cities like Dallas and Fort Worth do prioritize public safety with a more traditional law enforcement practice. While no place is immune to crime, Texas's approach does tend to focus on some stricter prosecution of offenses, leading to a greater sense of security for many of the residents here. And with the rise of homelessness and crime in California, especially in cities like San Francisco, it's caused many of its residents to feel pretty unsafe living there and even visiting there. Public spaces have become harder to enjoy, and property crimes are often left unprosecuted. In fact, when we were visiting there a couple of years ago, there were multiple times where we witnessed some crimes being committed right in front of us, and people telling us that there was really no use in calling the cops because nothing was going to be done. In fact, we were sitting there getting ready to rent bikes. Some guys ran up, smashed all the windows, took everything out of the car and took off, and the workers did nothing. So while in Texas, of course, some crime and homelessness do happen, it is less visible and more controlled due to tougher enforcement policies. Now, I was talking to another client who is making the move here from LA. They had lived in the LA area for, I think it was like 5 years, and they felt less and less safe in that time frame, just walking in their neighborhood due to an increase in the homelessness and the crime that they were seeing almost on a daily basis. They finally relocated here to the suburbs of Dallas, where they said, obviously, that was a night and day difference, and they felt so much safer with our lower crime rates and a much more family-oriented atmosphere. Of course, you are always going to find more crime in the main metropolitan cities than you will in the suburbs. But even from some of the suburbs in California to the suburbs here in Dallas, we've had people tell us how drastically different they feel in their safety. Here in Texas, and particularly in Dallas-Fort Worth, it offers a much better sense of security and a higher quality of life for those that are concerned about crime and safety. The stricter law enforcement and more proactive approach to public safety really does leave many families feeling more comfortable raising their children here in Texas than in some of California's major cities, and even some of like the littler cities as well, from what we have heard. Now, we have covered everything from our cost of living and our housing affordability to job opportunities, the different climates that we have, and I'm sure the comments are going to blow up over the political differences and the crime that we talked about. But if you are feeling frustrated with the rising costs, the crowded cities, or the political climate in California, well, then Texas, and especially here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, might be the fresh start that you are looking for. The opportunities that are available for people moving here and being able to find affordable housing, plus the number of jobs and different industries that are located here, and more importantly, finding a safe, family-friendly environment moving here to Texas really does have something for everyone. And as someone who's helped many families make the move from California to Texas, I understand that there are concerns and challenges that do come with relocating. But I've seen firsthand how much happier and more secure people feel once they've actually moved here and settled into Texas, especially here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So if you are considering a move, I'm here to help you navigate that transition smoothly and find you the perfect home that will fit your needs and your lifestyles. And if you are ready to make that change, or even just kind of toying around with the idea, thinking about it, reach out. I would love to answer any questions that you have, help you explore your options here in Texas. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is truly thriving, and I'm confident that we can find you a home that you would absolutely love. So let's get started on your new chapter here in the Lone Star State. Reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, and until next time,